So let's go to the first topic. And this one's pretty broad too, but I'll kind of try steering it to where I think I'm kind of the most curious. The first thing is you have a very unique experience where when I did local SEO, 95% of my local SEO accounts were one location, where I think you have had big household name brands with multi-locations.
4,000 is my record. That's the most I've had.
4,000. And so as much as I don't love the word scaling too much because I think it's overused, what I've always kind of been intrigued about is I think everyone knows, when it comes to local SEO and multi-location, you have to kind of have to scale the local landing pages. You have the different Google business profiles, but let's think specifically about the local landing pages, each location having their own page. I mean, how do you help guide clients in let's say creating 100, 500 of them without falling into that duplicate content trap?
That's a great question. And I do want to remind anyone who's listening and they're starting to put together a strategy for local SEO, bust out a notebook and have 4 pages on it. One page, around data management. And we'll talk about that here in a second. One page where you're going to take some notes and make some action items, specifically around the landing page that we're going to talk about right now. One page where it's just about your data visibility, the business listings, citations, curation of some of those short summaries that you have to earn the featured answer spot, and ratings and reviews. Have those 4 pages: ratings, reviews, citations, local page, and data. And if you're focused on those 4 areas every month, you're going to crush it. So create those pages in the notebook and just start taking some action items down. On the local page side, scaling it, I know you hate that word, but it is challenging when you have 4,000 locations. And the number one differentiating factor around the duplicate content issue is hyper local content. It's helpful content. It's simple things that you can now use ChatGPT and other platforms to gather the data from, and then creates sort of a template or framework that's similar, but the data itself is going to be different. Distance from freeway. It could be something such as parking situation that you have to pay attention to. What are some nearby landmarks? Hey, you're a restaurant, you could probably write something up that says, if you're hungry before a game at such and such stadium, right? As long as the stadium is the Boolean, yes, you have a stadium, then use the statement. No, there's no stadium nearby, then exclude it. You can say, hey, if you're hungry before or after a game at such and such stadium, come by XYZ restaurant, right? And so you can get all of that information about what's local. Some of the sites I've saw that have done a really good job include hotels.com.
Okay.
If you look at hotels.com city pages and scroll to the bottom, you can see a lot of really unique, helpful attributes for somebody who's looking for a hotel in that area. What's nearby? And tell me about the temperature and what's different about this location than the one that's in the city next door. Those differentiating factors make a big difference. But I can tell you the absolute easiest way to scale your local pages is not to do it yourself, but to let your customers do it. Guide them through, the post-purchase process at point of sale, back to that local page and have them do a review. And give them some tips on how to leave a good review. Hey, we really appreciate you sharing your feedback, especially if you're able to share what you ate, what you did, what you bought, what you liked about it, why you chose us versus someone else. Tell us those kind of things, because when they do, they're going to be spitting out a lot of keywords that will go right on that local page as user-generated content and make each page more and more unique as you continue to garner reviews.
Gotcha.
Those are 2 things you could do right away to, again, the ChatGPT side of things to collect information around the area. And then, again, use hotels.com for inspiration. And 2, that user-generated content through reviews. That's 2 really, really easy ways to help get more unique information per page. Even then, Jason, I'm less worried about duplicate content. I've seen very few instances where Google penalizes a location page for being too similar. There were probably 15-20% about 4 or 5 years ago. 15-20% of our pages got omitted, and Google chose a different result because they were just really thin. But when you start to really develop better content and have more unique attributes like amenities that are unique to that location, the signal picks up on those amenity differences, even if it's only a few bullets at the top of the page, or an address and phone number, or a downloadable contact card, or heck, even a Google map with just the location is enough to differentiate your page. And most of the time, that page is still going to perform pretty well.
That's really interesting there. So duplicate content you haven't found in recent kind of time. that much of an issue for...
No, because it's still helpful content. Okay. It's a real brick and mortar location. People are looking for the hours. They are looking for directions. They are looking for coupons and offers if you can put them on the page. They are looking for reviews from real customers. They're looking for all that information. So it's not going to penalize you for being duplicate if the content's helpful. And they'll know. You know how Google knows whether a page is helpful or not? Whether they stay on the page or they go back to the search result and choose a competing result. And Michael Martinez and my other peers that don't believe in user search behavior signals, I'm telling you, that works. So
he's calling you out. Just saying, you heard it here. He's calling you out. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I love you, Michael. You're one of my heroes. But geez, man, it's there. It's there.
It's funny how I wonder how many times we're gonna loop back to the click-through rate kind of experiment from the beginning.
It's not even just click-through, right? It's about being the final place a user stays, and not having them go back to the search result and choose a competing result. If you're a search engine and you notice a page that you've listed at the top of your results, and you notice people are going to that page, real people with authenticated IPs that have done other searches for a while, and you've said, okay, I'm 90% confident this is a real person, and they go to the page, they stay for a few seconds, and they come back, and they choose a different search result and stay there. And enough percentage of searchers do that. What do you think as a search engine, what should you infer from that? Was it a helpful result if 50% of the people are coming back and choosing something else? And over time, depending on how much search volume there is, days, weeks, months, over time, Google's going to say, yeah, as relevant as I think your page is based on its content and based on the links that are coming in, I'm still not seeing this as being helpful based on how users are interacting with the listings that appear on the search results.
So is that super important? Is that something though where you're doing it more on feel right now, or is there have you ever been able to acquire data or some random?
Of course,
yeah.
Well, that's what Google Search Console is for, right? You can dig right into Google Search Console, filter the URL of the page that you're tracking, and look at your click-through rate. Run some tests, add some markup to see if you can get a rich result. Use title tag principles, like a call to action, the keyword, a unique selling proposition. Okay. Solve for the intent of the user. If you search for title tag principles and you see my little 3 bullets from 2009 appear, either as a featured answer or right below SEMrush, we're kind of toggling between the two. You'll notice in the title, I don't just say title tag principles, or ultimate guide, or something like that. I say use the call to action, these title tag principles, keyword, to help boost your CTR and SEO rankings, because I know they don't care about title tag principles. They care about boosting their click-through rate and their SEO rankings. Solve for their intent. You're a shoe manufacturer. Don't just put walking shoes, put comfortable walking shoes. What's the intent of the user? They're comfortable, affordable walking shoes that last, free shipping both ways. Boom, you've solved it. Oh, shop for, let's get that call to action in there. Right?
Yeah.
So if we look in terms of patterns, and every month we're looking to improve the quality and helpfulness of our content, the visibility of our pages and our business information, and improving the click-through rates and the bounce rates and so forth of users who come from search. And every month we're doing something to hit an annual KPI goal, then you're only going to see growth, because every month you're doing something to get better and better and better. You're not resting on your laurels and calling it a one-time done, or being really ignorant and giving all of your SEO responsibility to a developer or all of your SEO responsibility to a writer. Instead, you're working with a team of people who focus specifically on tech, specifically on content, specifically on off-page SEO. Even if it's an hour a week, you're still doing more than the guy next door who paid someone to do a one-time thing, and they're going to watch their rankings plummet over time.
Yeah, you know what it sounds like to me is that my question was so telling in the sense of is there a thing that you can prove with data or whatever, but I think it's almost like, I hate to oversimplify this, but I live in metaphors and analogies. It's like the person that's like, hey, what's the perfect, healthiest meal? And you're like, dude, that's not what this is really about. If you're trying to get in shape, just work on it every week, make substitutions here. There is no the perfect one. It's just kind of if we go back to the SEO case, are you actively, every week or month or whatever cadence, looking at your pages and improving them through schema, the interaction on the site, what kind of content you're giving, and
testing.
Yeah, and that's where it's the pattern and habit more than anything else, right? Okay.
So let's take a local business, for example, and that local page example. One of them, we're doing one for breakfast. It's like breakfast delivery, right? And so we look at this breakfast delivery page in a specific city like Anaheim. Our page title is breakfast delivery, including lunch, dinner, and delicious desserts or something, right? And then we go to that URL and we look at the keyword breakfast delivery and we watch it in Search Console with just that search term against that URL, and we see the click-through rate. Click-through rate's right now about 4%. We really want to kick that into gear. So let's try doing some things. Let's add the native reviews on the page and put the star rating. So we have the stars and the click-through rate. Hey, check it out. Today the stars came in. I can see it in search. I'll put a note in my tracking, whether I'm using SEMrush, Ahrefs, Conductor, Bright Edge, whatever. I'm going to put a note in there. This is the day that we changed this particular thing we saw, and this is the date that we saw the stars appear. Now we look at the click-through rate, that URL, breakfast delivery. Whoa, we're up to 6%. That worked. Our click-through rate's doing great. This is exactly what we hoped would happen. What are we going to do next month? I don't know. Maybe we'll try to put a pancake emoji in the title or something, right? Every month, let's come up with what that one thing is that we want to test around all three areas. Let's test improving something in conversion rate to keep people on the page when they get there. Let's test something off the website to get other websites to share and link to us. And let's test something within the search results that could boost our click-through rate. And again, if you're doing one test across those three different areas of focus every month, there's no way you're not going to see growth in the course of a 12-month tour.
Is this
campaign.
What you consider data management? You said the four kind of principles, because this sounds, as someone who has failed testing before, and I for the listeners, you probably been the same if you haven't been successful. I'll run one test, kind of forget about it. 4 to 5 months later, I'm like, oh, frick, we ran that test. But in 5 months, we ran one minuscule test. What I love here is that you're kind of running tests at all times, but there's also data purity where you kind of need to know what variables you were testing. So you have to run different context tests. How do you manage all of that from a operational perspective?
Sure. Well, we use a lot of Google Sheets, a lot of Looker Studio. Looker Studio is fantastic. You have so many things you can do, so much data you can import in. You can use super metrics and pull in your Google, Maps information. I keep trying to use Google Maps because they keep changing it from Google My Business to Google Business Profile, Google Base, whatever. So I'm like, it's Google Maps now. We're just going to call it Google Maps. But yeah, so we use these spreadsheets, and every month, we look at the change, we look at the trend. We use a project management system. Right now we're using Monday, and we'll know exactly what tests we're going to run in each of those three different areas. Well, if we're doing local, for e-commerce, we might do categories and product detail pages too. But for the most part, just a simple spreadsheet with columns. In fact, it's bit.ly/KPI-tracker would be the URL if you want to see a template that you can leverage to see how you're growing and improving. And the tests themselves, again, you use a project management system like Monday. You load those tests up, and say, here's our March sprint, here's our April sprint, here's our May sprints, and you know exactly every month what you're going to be doing and how you're going to be testing. And make sure the big thing is, well, what happened in March? I don't know. Let's go back to our project management system and find an archived item. No, that's a pain in the ass. Use the annotations. And I know it's tough to do it in GA4. So there are some plugins, some Chrome extensions that you can use. It's just do a search for annotations in GA4 to find them. And then, of course, in whatever SEO enterprise suite you're using, SEMrush or otherwise, there's a notes feature, and you can put a note on a date and see your little trend chart and put a note on the date that those changes happened or when they propagated in the search results.
So I'm assuming you wouldn't be doing a test that's site-wide. You'd probably be doing a page has a test on this page, a different test on another page. Are you doing it more page by page or site-wide?
For sites, and I apologize for the background, there's a fire truck out here, but
it's real. I think people know.
It's weird. I wonder what's going on. So yeah, I think for a small site that gets very limited amount of traffic, I don't think you're gonna see a huge negative impact if you decide you want to test something site-wide, like changing something in the global footer or in the top navigation. Maybe you're going to run some tests using a heat map tool, and you decide, hey, you know what? No one's clicking on About Us and FAQ in the primary nav. Let's move that down to the footer and focus the top nav on what people actually click on. So I think from that standpoint, that is a global change that affects the entire website. And it's easy to roll back. So if you find, hey, that didn't help, we're actually seeing fewer conversions and our ranking shifted, revert quick. That's definitely something to do. Now, the larger sites that do get a lot of traffic, especially multi-location brands where you've got thousands of locations, we generally start, with a 10% tests and a 10% control group. So you've got 20% of the site is under scrutiny, and 10% is a control group that doesn't change, that you measure against, and then 10% is going to be what you affect. Let's change the image name from 001.jpg to self-storage Anaheim and the address.jpg and see if we notice a difference in ranking across that. And by the way, that did work. It's kind of neat. We also saw better visibility in Google Images. But yeah, so that's the best way to test is just take 10% as a test group, 10% as a control group. Or if it's a site that gets less than 2,000 or 3,000 visits a month, I would say go ahead and run it across the whole site, but give it 90 days, especially small websites, 90 days and see if you notice a difference. 90 days versus the 90 days the previous year. Thanks to seasonality, we never really can do month versus month or 90 versus 90. We really should compare up to the previous year, which got really weird during the pandemic, but that's a whole other podcast.
So I guess, and I'm going to get real granular on this, so apologize if I'm only focusing on these weird nooks and crannies.
I'm apologizing. This is what we're supposed to be doing.
Good. Okay, cool.
Beat me up, man. Grill me, interrogate me. I'm ready.
Sometimes people are uncomfortable with questions because they feel like you're exposing them, but
I'm a teacher. That's what I do for a living. I'm teaching at Cal State Fullerton, UC San Diego, Fullerton Community College. So I love sharing.
So you can actually imagine what kind of student I was. I was the one that was like, wait, what about this though? But okay, so.
Well, that's how I stayed awake, Jason. I had to ask questions or I would have been out.
Okay, that's literally why people are like, Jason, you're such a geek. I'm like, no, if I don't ask questions, I'm gonna get distracted and then
I need to be challenged too. Yeah. In the same way. Yeah.
So I love the 10% kind of test, but I guess what comes to my mind is some parameters around the test. I don't want to get too perfectionist about it, but do you ever say we're only gonna test pages that are already on the first page, but we're trying to increase them, or we'll test pages that are on the second and lower? Is there any parameters where you're really, we generally only start testing once it's on the second page? Because I can imagine on the 10th page, what are you really going to be testing at that point, right?
Yeah, for the multi-location, just a simple Google Sheet's a great way to do that segmentation. So, for example, when we're doing tests with public storage, we would take URLs and their associated keywords that we're tracking and say, okay, we're going to go with ones that are in average position 6.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay. And so we take our group average position 6. Okay, let's take another one where our average position's on page 2 at 12 and see if we notice a difference. And it got really challenging because most of their listings were, in the second position. So our goal at the end was to try to get them into the first, which talk about a challenge. It's easy to move up to the first page of Google from the second. It's much harder to move up from the second position to the first. So that was a really interesting campaign, but we did it. I think on average we were 1.5 or something. So to
affirm that as an SEO, getting on the first page is a challenge. It's like filling in an outline of a dinosaur and just coloring it in. I feel like getting to the first position is tracing the line of the outline perfectly. It's a totally different.
It takes so much patience, Jason. It takes so much. But remember, those URLs that are usually at the top have been there for a while. They're rooted like a tree. You can't just plow through and just take the number 1 spot, at least not without manipulating search results and eventually getting scrutinized and perhaps even penalized and removed from the results altogether. You need to earn your way. You need to grow your tree. And sometimes, for keywords, we had a client in the consignment business who was trying to rank for Rolex watches and Rolex Submariners and so forth. We had to wait 2.5, 3 years, 4 years, I think, to get on the first page for Rolex watches, but it was just continuously nurturing, those focal points, the relevancy and helpfulness of the content, the visibility by links and curation and sharing and other websites mentioning us and using those keywords. And lastly, trying to influence click-through rates and get people to stay by influence conversion rates. So it does take a long time for really competitive keywords, but I can tell you it's worth it. I saw Rolex Submariner was 1.26 million a month in revenue. That's sick. So it's totally worth it to keep chipping away. Never give up. Don't rest on your laurels, like we said earlier. Just keep working on it. Survey people, ask questions, ask customers, ask SEOs, get second opinions from other SEOs. What could I do better? What could I do better?
Well, and to your point, 3 to 4 years, you better have good documentation about what you've been testing and stuff like that to kind of keep.
Well, that's what the annotations are for, right?
Exactly.
That's why we annotate everything.
To me, what I'm taking away from that portion of it, and it's funny because I just had a conversation with my own internal team where my lead SEO came to me and said, hey, we have a client who used to be second position or first position, but now she's averaging third or fourth. Yeah. I am contemplating, and this is I being my SEO lead, he was like, I'm thinking about changing the title tag and changing the content on the homepage, which is the one that was ranking. But I'm a little nervous because what if it goes the opposite way and we fall even farther? So the other option is just to stand pat. And we were talking about internally, I was like, why are the two options so large? Why does one do nothing and one like make all these changes? I said, why don't we plot out all the changes you want to make, do them one by one, and kind of monitor it like every 2 weeks. And then kind of, we can always reverse course if one of them.
It's still not a good window though, Jason. It should be at least 18 to 45 days, at least, okay, when you're ranked up.
18 and 45. So, okay, I got to go back to my meeting and then say, okay, 30 to 1 month and a half, right?
And we saw that with Meineke back in, it was 2014 when we were kind of testing. How long does it take to really see a difference? So we call this like a dust settling period. So imagine Google crawling your website every day, multiple times every day. And all of a sudden, they see a bunch of changes, right? And they're like, there's a lot of things happening here. In a way, it's sort of like being in the Old West and going through a new town that's being built. You're like, there's a lot of things happening right now. And there's a lot of dust in the air and there's buildings being built. I'm going to come back when it's done and see if this is a town I want to stay in, right? And so when you make a bunch of changes, Google's got to analyze those changes. Not necessarily what their crawler sees or doesn't see on the page, unless there's broken links or something like that. More about how users interact with the changes from people who click the listing and stay. Hey, you made a bunch of changes a couple weeks ago. It's been 2 weeks. I'm monitoring to see how users are interacting with that listing. They're clicking on it a little bit more often, but they're not really staying on it as much. Maybe those changes weren't very good, or maybe I just haven't been watching long enough. Let me watch a little bit longer, right, and see if it's actually done. Oh, wait, they made some more changes. Let me start all over, right? So
would you validate though, or agree that like what I'm kind of nervous about? If you make 5 major changes, how do you know which one actually influenced it? It's about kind of splitting it up over time.
Well, there's a couple ways. You could use those heat map tools, like we mentioned. How are users interacting differently with different pieces of content? You can also use the events. If you're using GA4 and you're paying attention to events, even without click tracking, you can still see clicks and things that are happening. And just going into your GA4 and looking a little bit at what they're interacting with and how it's different. What was the last thing they interacted with before they left, right? Okay. That could be something you could pay attention to see, what made the impact. But I'm with you. I kind of like doing one change at a time. Let's just start with, our H1 tag,
exactly,
right? And then let's wait our 18 to 45 days, see what the impact was. Okay, no impact. Great. Let's make another change now.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, and I think what I like about what you just responded with is, remember, you're looking at it from the clicker's experience on your page. It's not just about the variable testing. Is Google seeing a positive interaction with your page, them staying there? And
are they going back to the search results and choosing a competitor?
Correct.
That's all we care about at the end of the day. Are they, when we get to the top of the search results, forget links and content is the priority. The priority is making sure that we're the one that's selected and we're the one that they stay on. And that how we do that is just continuously improve our page, make it, convert better, make it load faster, make it more accessible, right? Eric Enge said this at Stone Temple when it was Stone Temple at the time, that you should pay attention to every user, not just your base user. So there's that 80-20, and everyone's like, well, let's just focus on the 20 that we really care about. And that works to many degrees, but you have to imagine that if there's an accessibility issue and it's a tiebreaker between you and someone who's addressed accessibility, that accessibility searcher is going to choose the competitor. So I think it's important to care about every user and every technology, every device, every internet connection speed, every browser that they're going to be using, and making sure that you've thought of everybody, not just, and where would I start? Of course, is I would start with the ones that are driving the most traffic, but I'd work my way down and make sure I provided a good experience for everybody.
I'm a big fan of Eric, I must say. He was influential in terms of my SEO knowledge. I don't know the guy, but he was very influential in my SEO education.
His group didn't want to have anything to do with me with the extra space account back there. You just stay in your lane, Steve. We only worked with you for local. We don't need to hear your organic stuff. I'm like, but I'm number one for SEO. They didn't care. I love them though. They were great, but yeah, they definitely know how to keep their other partners in their lane. But then I got public storage, so.
All right.
Well, I'm just kidding.
I kind of want to go back to the scaling the local pages. So I really like what you had to say. Is that like, to me, it sounded like there are general patterns of flexibility that we're going to use on each page. So you said, are you close to a stadium? Is it close to, I don't know, a tourist attraction? So to me, what it sounds like is a page will generally have a layout where you know it's going to be designed and laid out a certain way, but the content in each kind of section of that layout, can be customized. And it sounds like what you're doing is helping the customer say, okay, for each location, maybe have that team or your team do it, but you can customize it to that location. But you're kind of giving the general kind of parameters around, is there a stadium? Is there a theme park? And so on and so forth, just to help them with that.
We had to do it manually too with one of our accounts before there was a chat GPT to play with. We literally had to have somebody in the Philippines go through and look at every single location. We created 60 different rows in a spreadsheet, right? 60 different columns in a spreadsheet, and we had every single location listed out of 1,600 locations. And it took them a good part of 18 months to go through one at a time and pull all that data manually. It's a lot of research, and it was worth it because you can see the keyword rankings of what those pages did. But now, thanks to technology and AI, you can automate a big percentage of that manual work that we had to do. And if you want to see a really good example, I've got two. I've got the framework itself. What should the page look like, and what are the components of it? They're on that study I talked about earlier on the Wiideman site.
Okay.
It's right in the nav. Just click on local page SEO, and it takes you right to this big diagram that walks through exactly what the attributes of your page should look like. The other real example that's live would be like IHOP. If you do a search for, say, IHOP La Habra, California, right in the search results, you'll see the local page appear. And then the site links, organic site links that we've earned are for takeout, delivery, careers, pretty soon things like catering, and even some of our products.
Okay.
So it's really important to, again, to build out localized content for people who are in that area. Each page includes the city name in the title, right? So everyone knows who's doing the search, oh, this is for breakfast takeout in La Habra, right? It's not just ihop.com/takeout. It's ihop.com/location/La Habra/ the location itself /delivery, right? Or takeout. So if you want to look at some of the end results of our study, IHOP's probably the perfect example, not just because their local pages are optimized for that localized content, but because we've also used that same strategy across the sub pages, the supportive pages, the specialty pages, whatever your particular local SEO vendor calls it. Those are the pages that have really made the biggest impact. The root page itself is where you can see all those different attributes. The native review section, ready to go. Right now, I think we're just pointing to Google Business Profile. The map, the video, the directions, hours of operation, and then, of course, subheadings that introduce those different entities that we know we need to appear for us to appear for the array of search terms that we want to rank for, not just breakfast takeout. We also have to go and carry out and car side and all the derivatives and semantics that are important to us that get introduced through those different subheadings, which, of course, is an SEO focal point, just like a main heading would be.
In terms of workflow for the teams that might have, lots of locations, have you found that maybe having the franchisee owner writing it is better, or just having the internal marketing?
Depends. Yeah, the organizations all have their own policies. The older the organization, the more challenging it is to really do anything. The newer the organization and the more aggressive they're willing to get, the more it helps. So what we found with the larger organizations is having a cheat sheet or like an SEO guide, and I can share this with you after the call if you want to see kind of a generic version of it, a non-branded version of it. It has 3 rows in it, and you distribute it to every single location. Maybe laminate it and send it to every location so it doesn't get destroyed. The first section is here's what corporate is doing for you. So when Joe Schmo, local SEO guy walks in and says, "Hey, I can get more foot traffic to your restaurant," they can say, "Really, what are you going to do?" And they pull out their cheat sheet and they go, "Okay, let's see here. You're going to do the business data information and Data Axle and Localese and Factual and Foursquare. Actually, corporate does that for us already. Oh, we're going to create a local page for you and a website. Oh, actually, they're already doing all that. And it passes Google's core Web Vitals page experience and has a really high conversion rate. Well, then I'm gonna blast your business data to all these different citations. Actually, our data management platform already has that handled, and we're working on trying to get in all the different food directories like Restaurant G and everything already through corporate. Well, I can get you more reviews and ratings to get your click-through rate up. No, actually, we've deployed some native review system, and we're working on a point-of-sale process and educating our staff members to focus on trying to get positive reviews and replying to those reviews quickly. And what about I could actually get you some links really quick from, actually right here in the second row, it says here are some things we're not supposed to do. And I'm not supposed to create a separate website or a rogue website that competes against myself. I'm not supposed to buy reviews and ratings. I'm not supposed to do these things. And so what we did on purpose is we made the largest section, the third row. And that third row says, here's the things you can do to help us, right? Like getting directions from all the different angles and places, north, south, west, east, get directions on Google Maps, on Apple Maps, on, all the different MapQuest, right? And make sure that it's accurate, make sure that everything makes sense and is to point, so that users have a great experience when they're coming in. Start really putting effort into trying to get reviews and feedback and listen to them. And when you see a pattern, like, hey, no one's at the front desk, that's a problem. Do something creative, like put a cool little announcement that makes everyone, who's in a building between 2 and 4 o'clock when it's slow, that'll make them laugh a little bit, but also tell the staff, hey, someone's at the front for you. Mm-hmm. So we give them a lot of really creative and helpful ideas so that they don't do something rogue and they don't feel like their hands are tied and can't be involved in the process. So number one is giving that cheat sheet to every location can play a big part in it. Now, if I could do it with some of the more aggressive franchises and multi-location brands, then I would get them involved. I'd run a survey. And I'd ask them questions, or I would send them really small bite-sized chunks of surveys directly to their cell phone that feeds back into a database with little questions like, does your location do this? Yes or no? So that way it's not as distracting, like, I got to fill out this big form. It's like you're complaining that you're not getting enough business, but you're not willing to fill out a survey to help us to get you more business. I'm just really busy. Well, if you're really busy, you don't need more business. But anyway, besides that, if you send those little short text messages, what's the nearest cathedral to you? What famous people have been to that location, right? Okay. Any little creative, cool things that you can come up with. Again, we came up with 60 of them. Colleges, lakes, rivers, reservoirs, oceans. All sorts of airports. Yeah. All sorts of cool ideas. But you can send them to them in bite-sized chunks once a week, and by the end of the year, have 52 fields completed. And all they have to do is just respond yes or no, or with a short answer in a text message. If the organization is willing to do that for the location managers or owners. The problem is in a lot of larger, older organizations, they're all owned by a franchise group. And the franchise group could have 450 locations. So they don't know what's happening on the ground at one location because they're managing 450 of them.
Got it. So it sounds like a lot of the lift and foundation is from the internal team to kind of control it, but then you can start making that difference of the really local flavor if you can buy into that engagement.
Oh, for sure.
Each person. Okay. Yeah. I want to move the conversation though, because local SEO, I think you and I have actually talked about this offline before. To me, local SEO is all about Google Business now, what they call Google Business, which was Google My Business. They just got rid of the My.
It's not your business anymore, Jason.
What's it called now?
No, it's not your business. It's Google My Business. Oh. No, it's not your business.
Dad joke alert. Okay.
I got tons of those.
But yeah, to me, Google searches have more and more pushed to the map pack, meaning that Google Business is more important. And then I've said the number one thing you can do for your local SEO is just get more Google reviews. I've always been a big proponent of that. Of course, after the right name, the right category, the right description, but after that, it's just all Google reviews. What is your opinion about kind of that belief?
I don't know. I think it is a heavy influencer, but I don't know that it's an end all. I think you need to address all areas, or one area is going to look off, right? Like if you've got a chart with 4 bars on it, right? And one bar keeps going up, but the others aren't changing. So I think making sure, that you're paying attention to your data accuracy and all the directories that are out there and new directories that are coming out is more important probably than anything, because proximity is still the number one thing that you really can't control, but is a very important ranking signal. Second, those local pages don't really affect your map pack rankings as much as your web results. But if it's an insecure page because your SSL failed, or it's in a bad neighborhood in terms of the IP and everything, there's some things that could affect your map rankings if you're linking to that local page. The third, the citation side of things, and every month if Google's crawling the web and it's finding your competition more often than you, and new listings and new mentions, and no one's talking about you, no one's mentioning your business name, address, phone number, and services menu, or any kind of sentiment anywhere, then imagine Google's got their own chart of that particular off-page visibility, and you're way down here and the competitors keep growing. There's definitely an off-page signal that happens there. To me, I look at it like Pac-Man. The more pellets you get, the more points you get. So every month, try to get more and more and more instances of your name, address, phone number everywhere you can. The last part, the reviews, like you said, is important, because nobody clicks on a 1-star review. There are some theories. One of my good friends, Ben Fisher, has multiple times proved that if you link to your Google review page, and Google knows that a review came from somebody clicking on a specific URL instead of just searching for you and then clicking leave a review, that there's no direct ranking impact. Mm-hmm. But if they do a search and they click on write a review, there's an impact. But if they go directly to the review link, they know you asked for a link. And so he's proven that time and time again that is definitely not a sustainable way, to try to achieve better review rating, metrics. So yeah, I agree that they are important, but I don't think that the end all. I think you need to pay attention to all 4 of those areas. And, reviews is definitely a big part of it, but I wouldn't obsess over it. The way I look at it is quality, quantity, velocity when it comes to reviews. So it's not about who has more. It's about looking at every month, is the quality improving in the ratings that we're getting? Is our response time on positive and negative reviews improving? Is the velocity of reviews that we're getting still higher than the competition when we look at the last 90 days? In the last 90 days, our competitor on average is getting 10 reviews and we're getting 8. In a few months, they're going to beat us. So we need to make sure that the velocity of reviews is still at a higher rate than our competition. And of course, the quantity is kind of going to go up on its own over time as long as you're paying attention to it. Incentivize employees, and come up with really creative, crafty things, like put it on a t-shirt. We love reviews. Put it on the receipts, with a big heart. Thanks in advance for the review. Yeah. Whatever you've got to do just to get the attention and convey how important, a review is. Hey, did you have a really good experience? If you still want us to be around and have another great experience in a few years from now, help us and share your feedback online.
Yeah, and to share a case study, I guess, or an example from my past, I used to work with a lot of dentists, and there were dentists that would have like 10 reviews, and it felt like a slog to have 10 reviews. And then I had some who had like 600 to 900 reviews. And I asked them, I was like, how are you getting so many? And you know what wasn't the answer often? The answer usually was never, oh, I have this cool software that we used. What the big boys ended up doing was they would build it into their standard operating procedures, where the office manager would come in, look at the schedule for the day, identify 1 or 2 people they knew was going to have a great visit because braces off or whatever it might be. And they would coordinate with the doctor and say, hey, turn the charm up. They're getting their braces off. When you talk to them, please ask them for a review. And it was just part of their procedure. And then they ended up dominating reviews, where I think the trap is a lot of people like, oh, I paid for this cool software, the SaaS product. And while there's room for that, and that's great, you still need procedures in your business to kind of help that go along too.
Because you're building a pattern of behavior, right? And that's, again, we're talking about algorithms and keyword rankings, and it all revolves around patterns, not around set it, forget it. I had another point too, when we were talking about reviews and kind of how important they were, that could be a benefit. So I was just kind of thinking the creative ideas, make a big difference for sure. But I think if you can figure out a way to, again, incentivize team members. Maybe it's not by money, but by fun competitions and raffles. And for every review where someone mentions your name, you get a raffle ticket, and we do something. There's a lot of really cool things that you can do there. But I promise you, anyone who's looking at their keyword ranking for a specific product or service in Google Maps, if you do a study and you look at, the keyword and the location as your keyword, I think Dave used to call it service tag, right? That's what you do and where you are, your service tag. If you look at that in different cities and you study the top 3 results, not the ads, but the actual top 3 organic results in the map, you're actually going to find that the top ranking result doesn't always have the most reviews. You're going to find that there are other factors that can influence, and a lot of it might have to do with velocity. A lot of it might have to do with activity. And I did a little video on this like a month ago. I'll see if I can share that URL with you again after after we talk. But this little video walks through how you make your Google business profile, your Google Maps profile appear to be more active. Things like having employees get directions to work with Google Maps and then hitting the I am here when they're there, just to signal Google that genuinely was looking for this place and actually got here. And, the pin is accurate because I'm marking that I'm here, taking pictures, taking videos, using your Pixel phone and doing a 360 video when you get in. And every day doing a different picture and getting directions from a different, location or a different route. If everyone is doing that every day, then that business profile is active because people are searching, they're getting directions, they're checking in, they're taking pictures and interacting with the listing. They're answering questions because it's going to come up. Would you mind answering a few questions? Yes or no? Yes. Does this place open at 9? Yes. Is this the correct phone number? Yes. Right. The more that employees are engaged in those type of activities related to Google Maps, the more I think it's signaling Google like an antenna, like this loud beeping noise to Google that this location's more active than other locations, and it could actually impact rankings.
And that's where you can build the incentives as well, as if your employees are interacting. Right. That's ingenious. I have not thought about that. Holy cow.
So many little things, but they all play together. There isn't one thing that you're going to do that's going to help you attain and sustain your rankings. You've got to do all the things in a way that's manageable for the business, but also creates an ongoing pattern of improvement every month.
Okay. And so I hope this is a quicker question, but I think because we're talking about Google Maps and Google Business, around the time I concluded my local SEO kind of time and I moved on to more nationalized or international SEO, local search grids were getting popular. They take a grid and they see where you are on the maps across a county or whatever geographic zone you want. Do you actively use those, or is that more something that you guys don't touch?
Not really. Again, we're focused really around content strategy. We're doing a lot of tests with knowledge graph and entities. We notice in the top 10 results that the listings that appear all use this entity, and we don't really mention that anywhere. So we'll look at voice search and how we're making sure that we're appearing in voice queries, and even creating custom experiences with the Google Action Console. And for a while, Alexa skills. Sounds like Alexa might go away soon. But I think we're trying to stay on the cusp of innovation and how we're creating content that helps search engines understand the meaning of words and helps users find the information they need within the search results, and then when they get to our page, to provide the most helpful and sales principle invoking page possible. Scarcity, reciprocity, urgency. So rare and so randomly do I ever see a coupon or an offer on a local page, but that's a huge thing because that allows you to do a couple of things. One, it keeps them to want to stay on your page and versus go back to a competitor that doesn't have a coupon on their page. It also allows you to have better online to offline attribution. I think with some businesses, they don't have a system or a barcoding system or QR code system to do that. So they'll just use, a letter system and track it across all locations versus a single location and attributing it to revenue. But if you can incorporate some sort of a QR system that says, bring this page in or screenshot this and bring it into the restaurant and save 5% off your order, when you show that and they scan it and it goes in the system, now you can attribute a specific query, where they came from, what they did, to an actual order, and know that that local SEO is driving a specific amount of revenue, when we trend the online to offline. So I think it's really getting into new ways that we can produce, more helpful content and stay innovative and ahead of the times as people start to untether themselves from their phones and use more voice search.
Yeah.
So to me, I think we called it VRUM, right? Voice readiness, mobile, markup, and measurement. Those are the areas of focus, for 2023 for businesses that are trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Gotcha. Okay, so to me, yes, there's these nice, cool looking reports, but it's all about just staying ahead of the content, testing, interactive, the entity indexing and everything like that then. Cool. Well, we've already kind of been going at this for an hour, and it's like your classic, like, man, each of these topics we just talked about could have been an hour themselves.
So much fun. We got to do it again, man.
I know.
Let's do something where we talk just about like one thing, like just Google business profiles. That'd be fun. Let's talk about the attributes and their impact to rankings and ways that people are cheating that you can, report them for and things like that. That'd be fun.
So Steve, you have a lot of places where people can find you. So I kind of want to let you tell the listeners where they can find you. I know you're a professor, you're an educator now. I think you said you were doing a textbook too. So can you give everyone a rundown of where they can find you and all the stuff you're doing?
Sure. Well, I'm just SEO Steve everywhere. I'm easy to find on any social network. My handle on LinkedIn's SEO expert. It's kind of funny because, the story we told earlier. But I love to help. So if there's a challenge or ranking challenge you're having, we're not just, hey, we only work with, big businesses. We want to help everybody as much as we can. And if we can't service you for whatever reason, we're going to give you tools and guides and referrals to folks like Jason, who do an amazing job and will take really good care of you. So by all means, if there's something you want us to look at or want me to take a look at, just hit me up on, SEO Steve on Twitter, Instagram, wherever, and I'll see what I can do to support you. And I'll also get a QR code over to you, Jason. So if you want, you can download all my contact information. I'm using the dot card now.
Okay.
So you can use this cool little dot card now to give all your info and how you can get a hold of me and all this neat stuff. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's called the dot.
I have, because actually someone showed it to me and I wasn't paying attention. I took the card from them and they're like, no, it's a Scott. I was like, oh, sorry. And I give it back to them. So, and I can attest to what Steve said. I've met Steve in the last, I think, 4 to 6 months, and he's
dude, I love hanging out with you.
Dude, he's
anytime.
Super generous with his time. So for the listeners, nice dude. I feel like you dealt with a little bit of bullying, but you're like the nicest guy, so it's kind of interesting.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, well, Steve, thanks for the time, man. And for the listeners, again, you can find Steve at the handles, and I'll put in the show notes of all the resources and places that you can find him. But again, Steve, hey, thanks for the time, man. I think there's a lot that we covered.
My pleasure.
And local SEO's got a lot of things, and there's just a lot to uncover, man. So thanks again.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Bye, everyone.
Yep.